Welcome to another fun-filled Friday edition of Second City Sports, and welcome to March Madness, baby. We're live and live in color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, Along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Lakina McGee on the Twitter and at Lakina McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app today, wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, so you can catch up on our other live shows that we have airing throughout the week, so you happen to miss them. You can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download the Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can catch us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to subscribe to our podcast, we know you've been doing that, but we need more of you to do so. You can subscribe to our podcast by finding us at War Media Podcast. No More Anchor is War Media Podcast. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Make sure you type this in your search engine boxes on those podcast platforms. You ready? WARR Media Podcast. Once again, War Media Podcast with an S. So War Media Podcast is where you can find our lovely programming via Second City Sports Podcast. And while you're at it, just go ahead and give War Media a follow on all social media platforms at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please follow War Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. We know this is St. Patrick's weekend for some of you, but if you decide to troll and don't do something silly or stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to build and be about.
Bye-bye.
I love when she says that. But before we begin, we must remind you that you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on the sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app through that way. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your personal PC like Lakina's using right now, like your Chromebook like I'm using right now, just go on to the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, live and on demand.
Anywhere, anytime you want.
And you know we can provide.
There we go. That's more like it now. We got
all right.
Yeah, we got a lot to do today on this St. Patrick's Day edition. So if you guys are off to St. Patrick's Day, get ready to party. Make sure you guys do it safely, folks. No drinking and driving or any other foolishness. But if you're watching some March Madness, we got some games going on for you right now as we speak. We're gonna have AB7 New York's Ryan Field to talk Aaron Rodgers, Giants, Jets, and maybe some of his Spartans too. They're playing right now as we speak in the tournament. They're actually tied with USC at 34 in Columbus. And you got, Kennesaw State, first time in the tournament, giving number 3 Xavier all they can handle. They're up by 1 point, 34-33, about 5 minutes left in the game. But we're going to get, start with yesterday's action. Of course, it's going to be kind of sort of like maybe most of this hour. We're going to talk all NCAA men's hoops. So, of course, we'll start with Northwestern. Northwestern with a solid win against a solid Boise State team from the Mountain West Conference. It'll be not bad for a team that hasn't been in the tournament. We thought that maybe some of the nerves would get to them. It didn't happen. Boo Booey, as he goes, so does Northwestern. And what do you think about that, Sid? What do you think about the game last night against Boise State?
Coming into the game, Northwestern, we talked about this all year. Looking, they're a very good defensive team. Of course, head coach Chris Collins leads the charge with that. But my concern was where we're going to get the offense from besides Boo Booey, where you saw Mr. Aldridge yesterday, Chase Aldridge contributed with 20 points. You also saw Ty Berry contributing with 13 points, including 5 or 7 from the field and 3 or 4 from three-point range. And so you saw a balanced scoring to help out Boo Boo yesterday, who led the team with 22. Northwestern had a nice start to the game, but those Boise State Broncos came back and made a game of it late. And they actually had a great start to that second half. But Northwestern, before yesterday's game, they were 20-1 when holding their opponents to 64 points and under. I know they gave up 67 yesterday, but they still did a good job. Whenever the Broncos made a run, Northwestern responded right back. We all know in the game of basketball, whether it's high school, college, or the NBA, it's about a game of runs. The Northwestern had enough energy, and they stayed with their game plan to hold out the Broncos yesterday. I was surprised by the Degenhart kid, number 2 for Boise State. He is a big man, but even though he had 8 points, he could really move it inside and go up and down the floor. I'm not saying I'm going to bet him in a track race, but he can move mobily for a big man his size.
Yeah, he's actually a pretty big guy. He was, that I really like him. We'll see, if maybe he could be a pro prospect. I think from the Northwest, like I said, I think Boo Booey, like you said, as I said, as he goes, so does Northwest. Also too, you talked about Aldridge as well. He had 20 points, kicked in for them. This is in the West region, the first round. So, a nice win for Northwestern. I mean, I think, look, if you're Chris Collins, not bad showing for a team that hasn't, been determined for the last 5 years. These guys this is the 6th year, I should say, and this is like a totally new experience for them. So didn't let the nerves get the best of them. You gotta, it was good to see the crowd from Northwestern. They travel pretty well. So, I thought it was, like I said, it was a nice win, a nice solid team win. Now they will get to their opponent in a second. They're going to be playing tomorrow because they're on a mission. So, but yeah, let's talk about Illinois for a second.
Well, I wanted to wrap up a couple of things about Northwestern yesterday. I know they got out rebounded by 8, 41-33, but their shooting from the 2 and from the 3 was very impressive. They shot 49% overall for the game, but 38% for 3-point range. We know that Northwestern is not the world's greatest team shooting the 3-point well from that range, but they did a heck of a job yesterday in shooting from the 3-point range, and they only had 7 turnovers for the entire game. They really took care of the basketball.
Yeah, they really did. And I think they all had like 9 or 10 turnovers. So that was that's kind of like that was another issue for Northwestern. So as like I said, it's good show now. We'll get to their opponent in a second. We're staying in the West region. This time we're going to talk about Illinois. Arkansas yeah, I know, right? Oh yeah, I know. We have to, but Arkansas beat Illinois in the first round by 10, 73-63. Sid, I mean, look, we look. Unfortunately, the bad Illini squad showed up. Ricky Council, the 4 for Arkansas, had 18 points. Devontae Davis had 16 points for Arkansas too. A double for Council. And for Coleman Hawkins had 10 points. Terrence Shannon Jr. had 20 points to lead the way for the Illini. But other than him, Melendez and Hawkins, there really wasn't a lot of scoring for Illinois. They were 6 for 22 from 3-point range. That's not going to win you tournament games. That's not going to win it for you. They were actually out rebounded by Arkansas. Well, they actually had the rebound. It was actually right there for the rebound. They had like 40. They actually out rebounded. Arkansas out rebounded Illinois. 43 to like 32 or 33 or 34. So it was really their big guy for Arkansas. Like I said, Davis and Council had some good scoring, and it's just like this is the problem with Illinois all season long, not being able to shoot the 3. The lack of rebounding, guys struggling, and we'll get to Coleman Hawkins' comments because his comments were a little colorful to say the least yesterday. So. I'm a little like, so yeah. What do you think about Illinois' performance against Arkansas yesterday?
Yeah, shout out to our guy Brandon Schultz. I hope you're doing well. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you too. Illinois, you just said it all, Lakina. They were the worst team in the Big Ten shooting it from 3-point range so far this season, and they shot it at a 27% rate yesterday, and that's not going to get it done. RJ Melendez, I thought, who showed up in that second half, he was in foul trouble. He ended up with 10 points. Coleman Hawkins had some big shots. I know he had 10 points overall, but Dane Danger only 5 points and 6 rebounds. That's not going to get it done.
Arkansas killed your guy all season long.
I know. But to me, Arkansas was killing Illinois inside, and they stepped up their defense, especially in the interior, blocking shots. As I said on our preview show last week, Illinois must, with Terrence Shannon and their guards, must attack the middle. They did, but they got their stuff blocked multiple times, and I thought for a while they were intimidated of going inside, and they started to do that a little bit in the second half, but I thought it was a little bit too late. But Luke Goody had 23 minutes of action off the bench. He only had 6 points, 2 or 3 from 3-point range. But I thought he should have played a little bit more. They giving us a little bit more for scoring opportunities. I think that was one mistake there for the Illini. But Ty Rodgers only had 6 points. Jaden Epps really didn't give you anything. He only had 2 points. Terrence Shannon ended up with 20, but Matt Meyer, 2 points, 0-6 from downtown. That's one of the main lines, one of the reasons why Illinois is not playing today. And Dane Danger, as I said before, he really didn't give you anything inside yesterday. So those 3 outliers are the reasons why, in my opinion, that Illinois didn't win yesterday. As I told you before we started broadcasting today, I wasn't surprised that Illinois was going to lose this game yesterday. Of course, I want them to win, but I wasn't surprised of the outcome.
Yeah, it was definitely when Arkansas, I think Arkansas was up by as many as 16 at one point. I figured, that's about it for Illinois. So yeah, I figured. Merce, I know a lot of Illini fans are probably happy that the season's over with for them, because they have not been they have been inconsistent all season long. And like I said, Coleman Hawkins had some pretty interesting comments. Basically talking about as you guys remember, the freshman, the highly touted freshman Sky Clark, that was supposed to be Brad Underwood's big time recruit. He came into the school, left after like 2 weeks right before the season started. But right before the season started, ended up going to Louisville, and that kind of was sort of like the thing that kind of put Illinois in the hole already. So. You gotta wonder though, was this a really big issue? And some people were even saying, I know our buddy Sean Davis, host of Lucky Lefty podcast, he said that is Brian Underwood really the answer for Illinois? Is he really the guy? I mean, but who would you bring in at this point if Josh Wimman who's the AD, does decide to fire him? I don't know. What do you think?
Unfortunately, Illinois, even though it's a big time school in the big time conference in the Big Ten, it's not up there with North Carolina or Duke or UCLA. It's just not there, even though the history of their program tells you that they have had success, long-term success. Well, within, of course, each program that goes through their down years, but Illinois has had successful teams throughout the years, and they just cannot reach that level. The last time they reached the Final Four was under Bruce Rubber. That was 15, 17 years ago. So I don't know who you're going to get at this point if you decide to fire him. Are their assistants capable enough to head coach the team? Should they decide to do that? I don't think so. I think he's back for next year. I'm talking about Underwood, but after that, who knows? Yeah,
I know a lot of people have been lobbying for Dee Brown. He's over at Roosevelt University. I know he's been coaching for a few years now on the college level. So I'm wondering, could he be? Some people were saying maybe he could be the guy, the answer for them. I know he's still beloved there down there in Champaign. I know that for a fact. So that maybe down the line he could be a name that could be be brought up. But I honestly don't know. I mean, this team underachieved this year. I think they were picked to be to finish in the top tier, perhaps even win the conference. So in some spots, so I'm wondering what can you do at this point? But yeah, it is what it is with Illinois.
Yeah, more NCAA tournament talk coming up on Second City Sports, a Fun Friday edition. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. We have a couple of double-digit upsets to talk about that took place yesterday. How does your brackets look? I didn't officially fill one out, but it would have been in the hole just like most of y'all. Whoever says they have a perfect bracket, you're lying, or as the young kids would say, capping. So we'll talk about the upsets and give you some of the results from yesterday's contest, and we'll preview some of tonight's matchups as we wrap up the first round of tournament action. Once again, I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You're listening to the Friday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. More tourney talk after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Sorry. Welcome back to Second City Sports of the Friday edition, the March Madness edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid Deslakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You find Akina McGee on the Twitter and Akina's going to begin the IG.
We have less than 90 minutes left of this extravaganza. We call it Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comments section, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Before we start reviewing yesterday's games from the NCAA tournament, just a scoring update for you guys. At halftime in the Midwest region of the first round, we have number 14, Kennesaw State. They're leading number 3, Xavier, 43-36. And in the other game that's going on in progress right now, Michigan State 45, USC 40. That's early in the second half.
And game just started in the South region. You got Baylor, number 3 Baylor, and up early at 4-2 against number 14 UC Santa Barbara. So Sid, let's start off with some of these upsets from yesterday. We'll talk about let's see here. Okay, let's talk about Furman beating Virginia. Now, I actually had Furman beating Virginia in a couple of my brackets. Furman, this is their first
Congrats
time.
To you.
Yeah, Furman beating Virginia. This is their first trip to the tournament since 1980. Their coach Bob Ritchie wasn't even born yet. He's not even 40. So their coach wasn't even born yet the last time Furman went to the tournament. And boy, did they say, oh, you know what, we're gonna stay a little while. They upset Virginia 68-67 in the South region. Oh my God. It was a little bit of a crazy sequence. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. you gotta feel Borg, Cedric, who is actually a fifth-year senior. He was actually on the team, Caden Cedric. He was actually on the team that won a national championship with Virginia a few years ago. So
2019 to be exact.
Yep. And he was, they were trying to inbound the ball. They were trying to run the clock out. He decided to, throw the ball up in the air, not call a timeout because Virginia had a timeout left. So it wasn't like, they didn't have no timeouts left or whatever, but he was trapped. He decided, Cedric decided to throw the ball in the air. It was stolen. JP Pegas, who is the conference player of the year in the Southern Conference, hits the game-winning three-pointer. That ends up being it for Virginia. They lose it in the first round again. Chris Canty, shout out to him, who was a former defensive end for Virginia, who went to Virginia. Of course, played the pros for about 12 years. Went to a couple of Pro Bowls. He was on Get Up. He said that it was basically feast or famine with Virginia, which he's actually right. I mean, either they win a national championship like they did in 2019, or they lose early in the first round. So, unfortunately, we got the latter. The Virginia got the latter yesterday.
I know that Virginia is known as a very good defensive team. Of course, that's spearheaded by their head coach, Tony Bennett, who's been there for 14 years. I remember him as a third-string backup point guard in the NBA for those Charlotte Hornets teams in the early 90s with him, Kendall Gill, Muggsy Bogues, and Lonzo Mourning. But anyway, staying with Virginia, I think I told you this during our preview show, that Virginia struggles to score in crucial situations, and they like to play the game at their pace. Not a problem with that. We saw that against Duke in the ACC championship game, in the tourney game last Saturday night. They couldn't find ways to score when you need to, and they don't have a second guy to go get them a basket when times get tough. Now, shout out to Furman yesterday. They knocked down their shots. You could get a sense, you could get the sense that watching that second half, Virginia could not put Furman away. And when you give teams like that hope, in whether it's false hope or realistic hope, when you let them hang around, they feel like they have a shot, and confidence grows, and that's what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, the Paladins from Furman. It's sort of like one of those things. You like to see these types of upsets because it's sort of I don't know, but for Virginia, I mean, unfortunately, you're also a small school, from Greenville, South Carolina. I mean, this is actually what the tournament is all about. So I'm sure people have been, searching for Furman, finding out where it is on their.
What was that school last year, Lakeith? They made it to the 16. I know my brain is going crazy, but that head coach was a national story. This was last year.
When was
this?
That
school. I think it was they were out in New Jersey. St. Peter's, thank you, St. Peter's.
Yeah, Holloway.
Yeah, they were a nice story. Maybe Furman could be this year's St. Peter's. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, definitely. Probably the one that, although I'm sure some people did have, that was one of the trendy picks for him being Virginia. Now, this was probably the one where this upset was probably the one where maybe a lot of people probably didn't see coming, and this kind of ruined some of my brackets because I had this team going far in the tournament. Princeton beat Arizona 59-55 in the first round, also from the South region. You thought that maybe, especially with Arizona coming back and beating UCLA in the Pac-12 tournament, you thought that maybe they had a shot at perhaps maybe going far, especially they're going to the South region, which is very kind of a log jam there. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And look, despite Tubelik's 22 points, leading the way for Arizona, they really didn't have that much scoring. And look, give Princeton credit. I mean, Mitch Henderson actually part of the team that beat UCLA back in '98. He was actually the starting point guard for that team. And that was actually the last time Princeton won a tournament game. And Arizona, again, this is not the first time they've actually lost to a 15 seed. Way back in '93, there was a young kid from Canada by the name of Steve Nash who led his Santa Clara Broncos to the upset win, also as a 15 seed. So, and look, we saw what happened with St. Peter's. They were a 15 seed, so they ended up going all the way to the Elite Eight. So we'll see if maybe Princeton can do that for them as well. But what do you think about this upset? Because this really I don't know if this is like the USC in him, but our buddy Sean Salisbury basically said that the way Virginia was acting, I would say Arizona was acting like they seem a little like those last few minutes, and they kept, like you said, keeping those double-digit seeds in it, giving them hope, and Princeton was able to to take advantage of that.
It's all about execution and attitude at this time of year. If you walk around believing the hype and believing all the talk that's going your way on whether it's social media, TV, or whatever, you start to relax a little bit. And when you relax and, like you said, give the other team confidence, things like this happens. But both teams didn't shoot the ball well from three yesterday. Arizona 18%, the Princeton Tigers 16% overall. But look at the steals and we were talking about this before we went on air today, Lakina. I remember Jay Billis of ESPN saying this last week. He said that he thought that Princeton would give Arizona trouble because of Princeton's tough and tenacious defense. Princeton did that yesterday, creating 8 steals and blocking 6 shots. Arizona only had 1. So Princeton brought it defensively. Arizona didn't. And you can tell that Arizona started to press. And when under 6 minutes to go, Lakina, Arizona had 53 points. Guess how many points they scored the rest of the way? 2. That should tell you something.
Yep, 2.
If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I know. You saw Tommy Floyd's the head coach's comments. He said, hey, basically said, hey, look, we got beat. They got beat, and look, good for him for basically admitting that. Tosan Evboman, who's from England, who's one of the top players for Prince. I think he was an Ivy League player of the year from them, I believe. Yeah. He averages 15.6 rebounds, and he was like one of the guys that sort of kind of helped start that run for Princeton to kind of keep them in it. So, good for them. And look, we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, this is sort of what the term is all about. And look, Princeton is not their first rodeo. Like I said, Mitch Henderson, he's been there. Their coach, he's been there. So, it'll be interesting to see how far they can go. But so congrats to Princeton, who pulled off yet another upset. Because look, we've seen them give teams fits every time they get into the tournament. I mean, you saw what happened, way back in '89. They gave Georgetown. They almost pulled off the 16-1 upset. Remember, back in '89. Georgetown was number 1 seed with Lonzo Mourning and David Wingate, I believe, was also on that team too. And they almost pulled off the upset. They gave them all they can handle. So Princeton got a good history. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but let's continue through yesterday's contest. Of course, the Houston Cougars get by Northern Kentucky in another 1-16 matchup in the Midwest region, 63-52. Mr. Roberts for Houston. Juwan Roberts, that is, 11 points, 12 rebounds, but Marcus Saucer re-injured that hamstring, and I don't think he's going to return to the tournament. That's going to cause huge problems from Houston going forward.
Also, too, another one of their top guys, Jamal Sheed, had suffered a knee injury, and from their top freshman, and for what Kelvin Sampson, the coach for Houston, said, it looks pretty bad. So that could also be an issue too for Houston. I know Jim Nance has been hoping and praying that he gets to call his alma mater since they're gonna the tournament. The Final Four is gonna be in Houston this year. So you're hoping. I'm sure he's hoping and praying that. I don't want to say. Look, we'll talk about the team they're gonna be playing against tomorrow in a second, but that's something. Those 2 injuries are gonna be big to look out for because you saw how much they struggled against Northern Kentucky. So gonna be a little dicey here now. As far as another number 1 seed, of course, that was in the Midwest region. To the West region, Kansas number 1, pulled away from Howard late 96-68. Grady Dick, that's his real name, folks. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to be funny. He had 19 points for the Jayhawks, and look, Howard. Look, they got a visit from Madam Vice President Harris after the game. So, even though I'm sure they lost, I'm sure they'll that's her alma mater, Howard. So I'm sure they were okay with I know they lost, but they got a visit from the Vice President. So
I saw that she was being interviewed by Allie LaForce yesterday.
Yeah, they saw that was a not a bad consolation prize. But Kansas, all 5 stars were double figures for Kansas. Looks like Bill Self should be back on tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. That'll be really cool to see. But Kansas so far so good, holding down the fort.
Yep, and like you said, Howard, they were in it for a while. They trailed by 13 at halftime, but Kansas buckled down to start the second half. They set the tempo for the rest of that game, and they pulled away for the victory. Now, the other number 1 seed that played yesterday, the Alabama Crimson Tide, they had no problems with beating Texas A&M Corpus Christi 96-75. For Alabama, Mr. Nick Pringle led the team with 19 points and 15 rebounds. Lakina, I know we haven't talked about this situation much on this program this year, but did you catch the beginning of this broadcast? I know this was on the big CBS yesterday as the early afternoon game. They talked about the
situation
Brandon
Miller.
the situation.
Brandon
Yeah,
Miller's
the Jim Nantz read the statement, then they kicked it over to Tracy Wolfson. And initially had a problem with it, but the reason why I think they did that because most casual friends who haven't kept up with college basketball, maybe heard it in passing. That's the reason why they did it, in my opinion. But I wanted to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I didn't mind them doing that because, like you said, Tracy's a reporter. This is the type of stuff that she does, and reports about. So I had no problem with them, doing that. I mean, look, that's not really, they're not lawyers, so I would think let someone who is has more of a news type experience. That's what Tracy does. Let her, do it, and I had no problem with it. I know apparently now that he's got, he's been having threats. That's why they had an armed guard, towards him. So that's why now he has 40 points. So, that's, I don't want that to, you hope he doesn't become a distraction, which it has. But the good news is that, they've got guys like Pringle, like you mentioned, who scored 19 off the bench. They've got Quinterly. They've got, Sears. They've got guys that can kind of, keep up the slack. And you don't want it to be a distraction, especially if they, go further and further into the tournament.
Yep, and that's what you need at this time of year, balanced scoring to help support your superstars. Now back to the Midwest region in the first round. Number 2, Texas, the Longhorns. They get by number 15 Colgate, as our good buddy Anthony Mason from WG and Rio says that's the toothpaste university. Texas dominates Colgate 81-61. Mr. Siri Jabari Rice, I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He had 23 points and 6 rebounds. That's Texas moves on there. In the rest region in the first round, number 2 UCLA, the Bruins had no trouble with number 15 UNC Asheville, 86-53. Jaime Vasquez Jr. for UCLA, 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 steals.
Yeah, this is going to be Northwestern's next opponent. And look, they can play defense too, like Northwestern can. So I think the key for them, if they want to pull off the upset, they can kind of try to keep those guys like Jaquez Jr. and Singleton and guys like that, kind of like at bay. But I wonder though, will it be Mick Cronin? He plays defense too. So like I said, if he's a defensive guy.
He's an animated guy on those sidelines too for the Bruins.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Not to be people talk about him in that way, but
very colorful in that way.
Yeah.
But he is very colorful, at times. But yeah, I mean, look, try to kind of keep the scoring going, but they got guys that can kind of score and kind of pick up the slack and such. They looked really good yesterday. I thought they were gonna have a little bit of trouble with UNC Asheville because especially on the inside with the interior, but they had no trouble. So they were able to pull it off. And look, you did what you're supposed to a 15 seed.
You're listening to Second City Sports or Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you, talking NCAA tournament right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in living color. And wrap it up yesterday's action in the East region in the first round. Number 5 Duke had no trouble getting past number 12 Oral Roberts, 74-51. Mr. Roach, squish, squash, kill that Roach. Sorry, that's old school for our parents' generation. Jeremy Roach from Duke had 23 points, while Mr. Max Abmas for Oral Roberts had 12 points. Lakina, Duke, just like you're supposed to do against your inferior competition, they jump out to a 15-0 run to start the game. We talked about them on our preview show. Philip Kowski, along with Jeremy Roach, who's been very helpful, not just defensively, but he's contributing offensively as well. It was no shock what we saw yesterday from Duke. Give head coach John Shire credit. Duke stumbled a little bit toward the end of the year, but they got themselves together, winning a ACC tournament title last week, and they're carrying momentum now. I believe that's now 10 games in a row they've won.
Yep. Yeah, and I think they're getting hot at the right time, and the defensive aspect of it. So it'll be interesting to see if we can kind of keep it up. But yeah, I thought that maybe they would have a little bit of trouble with Oral Roberts, but look, they jumped on them early and they didn't let them up, and so you got to give them credit for that. And look, it'll be interesting to see how far Duke goes. A lot of people might be cheering for Duke, especially with Alabama and the issues with Brandon Miller. So
yeah,
dare I say people might be cheering for Duke for once, but we'll see. Now going into the Midwest region, Penn State and Texas A&M 76-59. I was very surprised by this. They'll play Texas tomorrow. I'm talking about A&M, and Jeremy Pickett, who we've talked about him, throughout, he gave Illinois fits all three of those meetings that they played, and they won. Jalen Pickett, I should say, he had 19 points, and they just dominated from the outside, and just the Aggies had no answer for him.
Yeah, they didn't. And Penn State had a strong start to start the game as well. They led by 14 at half, 38-22. But Texas A&M, they made a little bit of a run at it, but Penn State had the momentum to hold them off. And you mentioned Andrew Funk. He led the team with 27 points. I thought that Penn State would perhaps lose this one because of what happened last week here in Chicago in the Big Ten tournament title game against Purdue. They made a run of it late, but they erased that from their memory, had a better performance yesterday.
Yeah, he was 8-11 from 3, and so that definitely helped propel them. And look, it was just crazy how all that transpired. That's a little bit nitty, but we'll see what happens. Penn State and Texas, that should be an interesting second round matchup tomorrow. Let's go through this real quick. San Diego State, beat Charleston. They held off Charleston 63-57. That's the first round in the South region. A lot of people thought that maybe this was another trendy upset pick. But look, I mean, I think SDSU, I think that they won it because I think they had lost like 5 straight first round tournament games. So I'm it's sort of like this. He's not maybe a team. I think Brian Dutra had been like 0-4 since taking over as head coach. So now he finally gets his first tournament win and solid scoring. I mean, 17 points from Mr. Matt Bradley, who was all Mountain West. So, not a good solid showing from a team that a lot of people thought that San Diego State were going to have trouble with.
Yeah, Charleston, I was proud of them. I know head coach Stan Van Gundy, who was calling the game yesterday. He gave him
did pretty good yesterday.
Yeah, I was also too, but he gave Charleston their props. He goes, Charleston, they can run with San Diego State, and they gave the Aztecs problems defensively, but Charleston was right there, but just San Diego State was there at the end, making all the plays down the stretch.
East region, you got Tennessee holding off Louisiana 58-55. And we know that they've been struggling. I'm talking about Tennessee have been struggling lately the last couple of weeks. They couple of guys. Jordan Brown with a heck of an effort, had 15 points. Hit some key shots to kind of get the under in this game for the Raging Cajuns, but Tennessee just too much for them.
Yep. In the South region, we had number 7 Missouri Tigers, as you called it, the Fighting Mike Burmans from ABC5 Chicago. And shout out to our good friend Charles Fryman as well from WGN Chicago, Sports Chicago. Their alma mater, Missouri Tigers, they beat Utah State yesterday, 76-65. Des Moines Hodge for Minnesota had 23 points and 4 steals.
Yeah, their first tournament win since 2010, and speaking of Josh and Mike, they actually had a little bit of a deal because Josh was actually still in college at the time. That was the last time that they won. I think he was a sophomore, and then thanks Josh for saying making us feel old. But look, Dennis Gaines did a great job in his first year there, and Hodge, won their top scorers 23 points, and look, they didn't really look. I mean, the Aggies kept it close for a little bit, but look, the Tigers pulled away late, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're 7 or 10. So we'll see, what happens with them tomorrow. West Virginia loses to Maryland 67-65. After it was a slow start for Maryland, I should say. And,
4 points to halfway through the first half. But they turned it around, took a 2-point lead at halftime. It was very competitive in that second half, and Maryland pulled through.
Kedrian Johnson, he had led the way for West Virginia, and actually had a chance to win it with as time expired. He got the shot off, but just didn't go. Like the iron can be unkind at times. So, unfortunately, first rounder for Maryland. Brad Willard in his first year. That's a nice win for Maryland. Auburn and Iowa staying in the Big Ten. Auburn just dominated Iowa 83-75. They were up 5, but look, it was some big 3-pointers for some of their guys to help propel them to that victory. So look, I think Auburn is going to play Houston, and if Houston's going to be down both Sheed and Strasser, look, we know that Auburn, Auburn's kind of been back and forth. They kind of been feast or famine with it, but they got guys like Williams and Willie Green Jr. They can score with the best of them. So I'm Wendell Green Jr., I should say, for them. They have that great balanced scoring. So I'm a little concerned if you're Houston with this game coming up tomorrow.
Yeah, Johnny Broom had 19 points and 12 rebounds to lead the Tigers yesterday. If he continues to play like that, it's going to be trouble for Houston. As you mentioned, they're already down 2 guys.
All right, and last but not least, I think we got one more score here as my computer. Excuse me, I got one more score, but no, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that was the last
That's
score.
it. Yep.
Northwestern and Illinois. So, real quick, let's talk about today's matchups. Some of the scores from right now. Michigan State, our buddy Ryan Field, he's gonna come right on after the game is over with. I think he's a little bit distracted right now, but yeah, they're up against USC. They're in immediate time out, 58-49, dominating the second half so far. Michigan State is, so we'll see if they can keep it up. Kennesaw State, they're just starting back in the first round of the Midwest region. They're up 5 against Xavier. Baylor, UCSB hanging there with Baylor, 22-19. Our buddy Spiro Dews will have the call with this one with Miss Debbie Antonelli. VCU is St. Mary's. That should be a fun one. That's another like 12-5 pick. So it might be.
I'm going with VCU in that one.
Yeah, I think so too. I didn't like how St. Mary's played in the championship game against Gonzaga. I'm a little worried about that. From after that SC Michigan State game, we got Vermont and Marquette. That should be interesting. The East region, Pittsburgh and Iowa State. That should be an interesting one there at 2:10. That'll be on True TV. NC State and Creighton. That should be a fun one. Another trendy upset pick: Iona and UConn. Fairleigh Dickinson.
The Rick Pitino school, right?
Yep. Rick Pitino's coaching there. Yep. So that's probably why a lot of people think that Iona has a shot. We'll see. Fairleigh Dickinson and Purdue. Purdue's the last and number 1 seeds to play. Like I said, the Bryce Hopkins Bowl here. You got in the East region. You got Providence and Kentucky. That should be a fun one there.
Let's go Providence. Knock out Calipari.
Right. Oh, I know how you feel about Calipari. Miami. Another 12-5 trendy pick. Some people say Drake could upset Miami tonight.
I told you Drake last Sunday. Let's see if it happens.
We'll see. It's at 6:25 on TBS. Grand Canyon can do what their coach did. Bryce Drew. Remember they were a 14 seed. They beat Mississippi. There was South Carolina, I should say. South Carolina that they beat that year. They play Gonzaga. That's the night game. Florida Atlantic and Memphis. This is my game, the 9-8 game I'm looking forward to watching.
Yes. Shout out Penny Hardaway, the head coach of the Memphis Tigers. And keep your eye on the Memphis Tigers point guard, Kendrick Davis. He scored 20 of his 26 points in their first half last week in the American Conference title game that helped propel Memphis over Houston. Not yesterday. Good grief. Last Sunday in the conference title game. Watch out for him tonight. If he goes off, it's going to be a long night for Florida Atlantic.
Should be a fun one there. Montana State and Kansas State in the East region, and Kent State and Indiana. That's the first round, I should say, in the Midwest region. And last but not least, it should be a fun one: Arizona State and TCU. This could be one of those games where we first to 90 wins. I think.
I think so too. That's the case. I have TCU in that one. The line is TCU favored by 5 points. The over/under. That's the score total for both teams, 142.
All right. Okay. I would say take the over on that.
I think so too.
I would take the over on that one. You might make a little bit of money as you start off this weekend. Now, you think you see? I heard you say about maybe Drake, maybe what you just say? You say maybe Arizona State could probably give TCU a run for their money. Maybe
I think they could. I have TCU winning that ball game, but Arizona State. I know many people didn't believe they deserved to get in, but they took advantage the other night while winning in Dayton in one of their first 4 games. So, like you said, it's going to be a heavy, fast-paced offensive game tonight. Whoever shoots the ball best, I think, will win. I think TCU has a little bit more better talent than the Sun Devils, so I'm going with TCU. I got my guy Penny Hardaway in Memphis. I think they'll beat Florida Atlantic. Indiana should have no problem with Kent State. But that Drake-Miami matchup, I know Miami has one of their big guys out right now, so I think Drake has an advantage there. I know Miami's favored by 2.5, but I think that's going to be a slugfest. And we talked about Miami being one of the surprise teams this year in the ACC. They did well, 25-7 overall. But Drake, watching them here in the Missouri Valleys, I think they're going to give Miami the run for their money.
We'll see what happens. So should be some great games, coming up. We're going. Okay, so we're approaching the top of the hour. We're gonna do an audible here. Our buddy Ryan Field is gonna join us till after Michigan State and USC. So they're actually up by 12 right now. They're starting to pull away. So he might be in a good mood by the time he comes on with us. But we're gonna do a little bit of audible. We're gonna talk some NFL. Lots of moving parts. The Bears make some big moves. Some other moves are happening as well. So a lot to do still with coming up next. We'll also have some sports media news as well. So and then also even some NBA. Not
so hot around these parts, but that's a whole other issue.
That's a whole other issue. But look, a lot to do still coming up next in the hour or two. Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We got NFL talk coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean,
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Friday edition of Friday Fun Friday, however you want to flip it and reverse it. We're live in a little bit of color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss McKinney Yee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We have 55 minutes or so left of this extravaganza we call the Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. McKenna will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, so let's talk about the free agent frenzy that's going on in the NFL right now as we speak. Now, of course, the Bears have they introduced DJ Moore at the presser. You know, it was interesting because he actually said that it was actually pretty cool. Was that it kind of came out of nowhere that trade to Chicago. He was actually getting his groceries, believe it or not. So you know, he actually got the text saying that, oh, you know, you've been traded to the Bears. So you know, that was a little bit weird there. But some of the other signs that the Bears have had, Tremont Edmonds, who's a linebacker, Pro Bowl linebacker from Buffalo. 4 years, 72 million, 50 million guaranteed. Some of the other signings, Robert Tonyan, who they just signed yesterday to a 1-year deal. Travis Homer, he signed a 2-year deal. PJ Walker, I guess he's going to be Justin Fields' backup. 2-year deal, dependent physical, so that's not officially yet. Dante Freeman, a 1-year, $3 million deal. You know, Patrick Scales to a 1-year extension. DeMarcus Walker, who's an edge rusher, he was signed to a 3-year deal. Got any issues with any of these signings, Sid? Nate Davis, a 3-year, $30 million deal. Sorry.
No, I don't. We'll see how it shakes out once the players get on the field in July for training camp, of course, once the regular season starts. But we talked about this on our last show. It looks like GM Ryan Poles for the Bears has a plan. It looks like he's executing it to perfection. Now we'll see what he does for the draft coming up on April 27th. But I was reading some bloggers and listening to a little chatter on our sports radio stations here in town. And some people are worried that the Ryan Poles may outspend himself and not have enough money, in particular for Justin Fields. Should you give him a big contract in a couple years, 2 or 3 years down the road? But this is how you do business in the NFL. No, you cannot sign everyone to 1 to 2 year deals. You know, you have to. There's a floor to an extent you had to spend as far as the salary cap is concerned. So I'm not too worried about that. Looks like Ryan Poles has a plan for that. You bringing in the veteran guys to be competitive. Like I said, look at those positions that he's signing, those places that he's signing right now. Most of them on defense, especially in the linebacking core. And so it should tell you which positions that they're going to be focusing on coming up in the draft next month.
Yeah, I mean, they had the money. They had to spend it somehow. So I think, you know, the whole thing about, they're spending too much. They're spending, you know, look at how much money they gave Edmonds, $50 million guarantee. I think for what I heard, a lot of it's, you know, front loaded. So it shouldn't be that big of a hit against the cap. So we'll see. You know, like I said, he's a Pro Bowler, for a 4-time Pro Bowler. So, you know, I mean, it's fine. I mean, look, I will see how the salary cap is next year. Like I said, he needed to spend the money. So like you needed bodies and little holes to fill. So we'll see what happens. But they still got, you know, some holes to fill. It'll be interesting to see what direction they do go with, you know, during the draft. I mean, they have their edge rusher now. They've got their guard now. So I'm wondering, like, okay, what's going to be sort of the thing? You know, are you going to build it? Will they trade back again? Perhaps maybe go further back into in the middle of the first round. We'll have to wait and see. But I mean, I like the signing so far. Like I said, I know people, you know, I'm not like overly, you know, excited like everyone else is, like some people are, but I'm not like overly like critical as it is. I'm kind of like right in the middle. So it doesn't really, you know, we'll have to wait and see how the season starts, how everyone meshes in these, you know, different roles.
Now, the one move that I was surprised by, and this involves the Bears as we head now into the rest of the division, David Montgomery, the former Bears running back, signing a new deal with the Detroit Lions. I know Jamal Williams did the best job that he could last year for the Lions, but David Montgomery brings a new dynamic to their Lions offense.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a money thing too. I think, you know, it's 3 years, 18 million. That's what Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport reported. I'm wondering, was it length or was the money? Was that the reason why? Because I know you don't want to, you know, folks don't, you know, you don't want to overpay a running back, especially someone who is in his late 20s now. But you know, it was a little bit weird. You know, I know Jamal Williams. I know it's like I thought that maybe I thought that was excuse me, easy for me to talk right now, but I thought there was a chance that maybe he would, you know, stay with Detroit. But like you said, I mean, in the end, the NFL is a business, and look, it'll be interesting. And like I said, I think, look, I know David Montgomery is going to be, you know, circling those Bears games. Those Bears are coming up. He would love to stick it to his former team, so it's going to be extra motivated. And now, of course, you know, with Jamal Williams is now in New Orleans. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, look, the Lions have put together a nice little signing there. You know, they got him, they got Cam Sutton, John Kaminsky. So I like what the Detroit's doing so far.
Yeah, the only thing, two things they need in this upcoming draft with the, they have 2 first-round picks. One from their Rams
Mhm.
trade. We'll get to Rams in just a second. From their Rams trade with Matthew Stafford a couple years ago. They still need another wide receiver to go with Amon St. Brown, and you need another defensive stud to go with Aiden Hutchinson, who did a very good job for them as a rookie last year.
Yeah, we'll see if they do it through the draft. Well, they, like I said, they had those 2 first-round picks, so you got to think that, will they maybe try to get a veteran and portray one of those picks? Who knows? We'll see what happens there now. Patrick Peterson is no longer in the division. He's actually going to be, in the AFC, back to the AFC, playing for Pittsburgh. I mean, the Vikings, I know they've had to release some guys because of a lot of it's because of money and such. They signed Nick Mullins. They got Marcus Davenport, Greg Joseph. They re-signed him. Byron Murphy. They got who's a veteran corner. I mean, and Alexander Madison. To help kind of like lighten the load from Dalvin Cook. I kind of like these moves. We'll see. I mean, I think that they could always use more defensive guys because look, like they Kendricks is gone and such.
Yeah.
They need another wide receiver. Of course, Thielen's gone as well. So that's another thing I'm probably looking forward to as well.
Yeah, Minnesota definitely needs a pass rusher too, and for this draft coming up. We'll see what they do there. Dallas Cowboys. Again, this is not a surprise. Ezekiel Elliott was released, and he'll be part of that June 1st cap casualty. He'll be released on that day. Which team do you see him picking up? Because as we talked about with the David Montgomery, even though he's much younger, running backs doesn't have the same value as they once were, especially given the new rules offensively in the NFL today. It's more about the pass. It's more about the mobile quarterback, which takes some yards off the running back's stat sheet.
I would say I've thought about maybe San Fran. I mean, they could use extra running back. I mean, to lighten the loads there, but will there be enough balls, to give them? I forgive for him. I don't know. I'm trying to think who else. I mean, geez, I mean, could KC find some room for him? I mean, it's a little. Maybe Los Angeles case, especially if Austin Eckler, if they have to trade Austin Eckler, maybe you'll bring him on with the Chargers. Maybe I don't know. Shoot.
Like I said, he'll find work, but he just won't be. He has to accept that he won't be the number 1 guy anymore.
Right.
There's a whole lot of miles on those tires.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have to be the second or third guy up. So for more depth, that's why I said I think maybe the Chargers. He could be a number 2 guy. I can't really think of anybody that probably would need a. Maybe the Colts might try to find some room for him. Maybe I don't.
Watch Bill Belichick would come out of the dark and pick him up.
I'm trying to think of would that scheme fit him. I don't know, but yeah, that's interesting though. We'll see what he does. But yeah, I mean that's if I think. I'm sure Dak's not very happy with this, but you look like you said, that's NFL for you. You can't keep everybody, so we'll see.
And they can rework his contract out the next year as well. So Dallas is very much up against it in terms of the salary cap. Speaking of another team with salary cap issues, the Los Angeles Rams we talked about. Allen Robinson seeking a trade. They traded Jalen Ramsey last week to the Miami Dolphins. Some people say they should look at, of course, Leonard Floyd, former Chicago Bear, who signed a deal with the Rams a couple years ago after the Super Bowl. He's going to be cut, and so some people say that they should cut. They actually asked Stafford to take a pay cut. He said no, and some people say, well, they should try to do the same thing to Aaron Donald. What's going on in Los Angeles?
I guess those picks, F them picks. I guess that little comment's going to bite them in the butt. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, look at not having those picks have come back to bite them in the butt. I think talking about the Rams, it's definitely one of those things where you kind of wonder, like, okay, yeah, like you said, I mean, Matt Stafford told him, no, I'm not taking a pay cut. We'll see if Aaron Donald might want to trade. So you're kind of like stuck. If you're Les Snead and the rest of the Rams brass, you're kind of stuck because you don't know what you're gonna. You know what? Look, you gotta have to get rid of. You had to get rid of Leonard Floyd. He had to leave. You had to trade Jalen Ramsey. A lot of your top players from the Super Bowl from a couple of years ago are now gone. So you're kind of stuck. Like, okay, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna try? Are you gonna have to maybe do what? Maybe give away some some of these guys to get those picks. Try to maybe build up, put a little Band-Aid on it. I don't know.
Yeah, the Rams are facing a lot of salary cap problems right now. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Friday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. Coming up, we'll have Ryan Field, the TV sports anchor from ABC7 New York City. We'll talk everything New York sports and Aaron Rodgers. What does this mean to the Jets organization and for their fans? We'll discuss that among all New York City sports, and his Michigan State Spartans looks like they're going to be USC in the NCAA tournament in their first round game today. We'll discuss that with him coming up. But Lakina, let's stay in the NFC, go to the NFC East. Marcus Mariota, who left the team last year in the Atlanta Falcons after they said you're no longer the starter. He takes his talents up east. He's going to back up Jalen Hurts for 1 year for Philadelphia.
I mean, yeah, they got a solid, backup in case Hurts gets hurt again. What does this mean for Minshew Mania in Philly? I mean, that's gonna be sort of like the thing there. You just signed, Mariota. That's gonna be interesting. And look, I think Philadelphia has been kind of getting out of this rut. I mean, you thought that maybe they're gonna have some issues with the cap. I mean, they brought Fletcher Cox back on a 1-year deal. They brought James Bradbury. He came back. There's some rumors that maybe he might go somewhere else. Darius Slay, who I know some Bears fans who were hoping that maybe he would come here, but he ended up going back to Philly on a new 3-year, $42 million with $23 million guaranteed. They got Rashad Penny, who kind of is going to lighten the load there too, especially with Miles Sanders gone. So yeah, I think Philly's starting to get out of their salary cap, not hell per se, but their little salary cap sinking, if you will.
Yeah, and losing Hargrove to the San Francisco 49ers, it looks like as of right now, it's not going to hurt them either. So I like the moves what they're doing.
Yeah, I do too. I like what they're doing. So yeah, they're doing it very smart. So we'll see what happens there. Vegas, I mean, they got Jimmy G. Josh Jacobs got the non-exclusive tag. We'll see if they can. They can maybe work out a long-term extension. They re-signed Amir Abdullah. They signed Philip Dorsett. They got Jacoby Myers, on a 3-year deal. So the Raiders are they we gotta ask Ryan about this. They traded one of their quarterbacks, Darren Waller.
Tight ends, yeah,
for the tight ends,
the New York Giants,
the Giants, and his wife, Kelsey Plum, who is a hoop star, of course. She's part of the defending champion, Las Vegas Aces. I guess because they found out while they were on their honeymoon that he was going to be traded from Vegas to the Giants, and she wasn't very happy though. And I guess she said something pretty funny on Twitter. I know it's still up, but yeah, she said that I guess he didn't get an invite. I'm talking about Josh McDaniels, the coach. So that was a little bit. That was a little bit funny there, but look, I mean, Waller got a nice, showing there, but yeah, I'm wondering, I guess they're gonna, I guess they're gonna try to get somebody to do a draft, or maybe make a trade or something like that. But I actually like the Waller trade for the Giants because they need Daniel Jones is getting extra guys to throw to, so I guess it kind of works out in that end.
Yeah, and they still need a draft a wide receiver. Of course, they got Saquon Barkley, their running back, on the franchise tag. So it looks like Daniel Jones is going to have some better weapons around him than he did a year ago when they made it to the playoffs. So going back to Las Vegas Raiders for the second, they have a respectable quarterback in Jimmy G. He's going to get the starter reps, and he's familiar with head coach Josh McDaniels. Of course, they worked together back in their New England days, back a little bit over a decade ago when Jimmy G was the backup to Tom Brady. He saw limited action, but I think this is going to work out for the Raiders. You still have Devontae Adams there. I believe Josh Jacobs, their running back, is back, correct? And so that's the case. Oakland is still respectable in that AFC West. Even though they had a nice little run in the middle of the season, the season was still disappointing for the Raiders. So I think they're back to respectability.
Yeah, they got the non-exclusive tag, much like Lamar Jackson with the Raiders. I mean the Ravens, I should say. So with Josh Jacobs with the Raiders. So like I said, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. The Broncos put together a nice little off season too. They got Samaje Perine, Jarrett Sim to back out Russell Wilson. They got, of course, we talked about Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey, Zach Allen, Alex Singleton, a veteran linebacker. So yeah, they're putting together a nice little off season too. I'm talking about the Broncos.
Yeah, new head coach Sean Payton is putting his stamp on his organization. telling Russell Wilson to stay off of social media. His wife should too, but that's a whole nother issue. But as far as the football is, concerned, they're making on the right moves to protect Mr. Wilson. Hopefully they can get another wide receiver to go with Jerry Jeudy, and hopefully they can get some running backs.
Yeah, that's the thing that they're missing right now. So the Colts, they're starting to kind of get together too. Of course, with Gardner Minshew going to in Indianapolis. That's why, of course, you saw the Mariota move to Philly. So they're putting together a nice little run there. I would say Houston. I mean, they're looking okay. I mean, they got Robert Woods, Shaq Mason. So they're putting together a nice little run here. Of course, we talked about Steelers with Patrick Peterson. Larry Ogunjobi. So yeah, that's a nice little run there. Cleveland got some pretty good talent as well.
I know that we were part of Deshaun Watson's contract to create some of those, create space to make some of those moves.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens there. Let's see. The Chiefs are doing pretty good. I mean, they got Jawan Taylor. We talked about that on Monday. Tershawn Wharton, we talked about that as well. So the defending champs aren't resting on their laurels. So we'll see what happens there. Now Washington, they got Jacoby Brissett because they don't know who the quarterback's going to be there. Nick Gates, David Mayo, Cameron Dancer. They claimed him off waivers from Minnesota. So they're putting together those. Has there been like any signing or any team that you kind of like are there like have made moves that kind of like scratch your head?
No, I don't want to say scratch my head, but I thought it was a pretty interesting move going back to the Bears and the Lions. Of course, David Montgomery being picked up by the Lions, he's going to add a new dimension to that Lions offense, especially with the running game. And we saw this at times here in Chicago. David Montgomery can catch out of the backfield, but he was one of the league leaders of missed tackles with running the ball. So I think that's going to be a very great dynamic as you help out Jared Goff with as the Lions trying to improve to get into the playoffs for the next season.
And I think our guest is on. So as we get ready for talk about some we didn't mention Aaron Rodgers for that reason. So for those of you who were on Fox and FS1, he was on there for years. Now he is the lead anchor reporter for ABC 7 in New York City. We're gonna talk some a little bit. I'm sure he's in a good mood now that his Spartans they just beat USC. So I'm sure he's in a good mood. They played at Columbus of all places, but I'm sure he's in a very good mood right now. He is the one, the only, the fabulous. He'll make his debut here, Mr. Ryan Field. Ryan, how are you?
Hey, what's going on, Sydney and Lakina? And I'm in a good mood today. Can you guys see me?
No, we cannot see you just yet. We can hear you, but we cannot see you.
What is going on with the camera here? I remember my first Zoom call.
Well, it could be a Wi-Fi thing, but look.
Yeah, it says the camera's on. I don't know what's going on here.
Well, yeah, it's a little weird kind of off play, but it's okay. It's fine. We'll just as long as we can hear you. It's totally totally.
We'll roll with it. We'll roll with it. Big win for my Spartans today. You knew the boys in green weren't going to lose on St. Patrick's Day. That just wasn't going to happen.
No, exactly. Well, we'll get to your Spartans in just a second. Now let's talk about Aaron Rodgers. Now, of course, he said on Pat McAfee that he made the decision. I guess months ago that he was going to go with the Jets. They've made they made some moves. They brought back Alan Lazar, Randall Cobb. I'm sure they called Greg Jennings and perhaps maybe Donald Driver, or perhaps maybe even Jordy Nelson to see where they're retiring. But what do you think is going to happen with this? Will there be a deal made? And how long do you think it's going to take?
I mean, listen.
Oh, okay. So we lost Ryan there, but
okay. Hopefully we get Ryan back on the show in just a couple of minutes. But Lakina, like you said, if you listen to the various reports, Aaron Rodgers made some demands in terms of wide receiver. Yeah, wide receivers, OBJ. You mentioned all the old ones he played with back in the day. I think it looks like we have Ryan back with us. Are you there, Ryan?
And with a camera, how about that,
guys?
All right.
Listen, I got kicked out of the system, and then it brought me back on with the camera. So I don't know what happened.
Maybe a refresh. Yeah, but
a refresh.
refresh. That's all you had to do. But as we were talking about, as I was saying, they brought back, kind of bring the band back together. Like I said, I'm surprised they didn't ask for Greg Jennings or Donald Driver or Jordy Nelson. Do you think will there be a deal made, and do you think will there be even some slip-ups? Because it's kind of the ball's basically on the Packers court at this point, right?
Well, and that's an interesting question, Lakina, because you could argue that either side has the leverage at this point. It's interesting in the sense that, look, Green Bay knows they have to deal him. He doesn't want to be there anymore. They have this whole thing with his salary structure that they need to get worked out to help create some cap space. Although there's still going to be a lot of dead money on the cap with Rodgers once they trade him. But look, he doesn't want to be there. The Jets want him. The Jets want to make this happen. But if you're the Jets, are you playing on the Packers' desperation, knowing that they have to get rid of him and not giving them all their not meeting all their needs, if you will? That's obviously an interesting dynamic here as this unfolds. But for Rodgers to say that he informed the Jets that he wanted to play with them and the Packers on Friday, and here we are a week later, and you have the only two teams in theory that are negotiating here with each other in this trade, and the fact that it's still not done leads you to believe that there's still a lot of hurdles yet to be cleared. And if the Packers want to get a draft pick for this year's draft, they're obviously going to have this done by late April. Here we are in mid to late March. So in theory, this could drag on for a few more weeks as they try to hash out what the compensation is going to be. If I'm the Jets, I'm hesitant to give up more than one first-round pick. If I'm the Packers, I'm asking for multiple first-round picks. So it's a very interesting situation in the sense that we don't see a lot of this in sports today where everybody knows what's going to happen, but both sides are still trying to iron out a deal. And this could take, like I said, maybe even another month before we come to a resolution in all of this. Outside of the draft being there and then the June 1st deadline with the contract, there's really not a lot of motivation to hurry up and get this done right now. So both sides can still kind of feel each other out for a few more weeks. But if Green Bay wants the Jets' first-round pick this year, then obviously they're going to have to get this done by late April.
Listen to sports radio stations in your city, Ryan. From my sense, I got a lot of mixed reaction listening to it. I got a lot of mixed reactions from Jets fans saying some people say they want Aaron Rodgers there, but some people say they don't because of his condescending personality and whatnot. And let's be honest here, the Jets haven't had a real good history with franchise quarterbacks. So what's the sense you've been getting from Jets Nation?
I mean, listen, the Jets haven't had a franchise quarterback since Joe Namath.
Exactly.
You're talking, 50-some years now. So Aaron Rodgers, as quirky as he is off the field, and he's definitely quirky. All you had to do was listen to his YouTube show on Tuesday to fully appreciate that. He can be controversial sometimes, with the whole immunization thing and some of the things that he says. But listen, if this guy gets the Jets to the Super Bowl, none of that stuff is going to matter. And I think Jets fans, maybe there's a little PTSD from the Brett Favre scenario several years back when they traded for the Packers legend, but he ended up having a shoulder issue and got hurt, but he was 8-3 as a Jets starter before an injury happened. So that kind of derailed the whole thing. Rodgers is durable, still one of the top 5 quarterbacks, I would argue, in the NFL today, even at the age of 39. He's a 4-time MVP. His resume speaks for himself. And Jets fans, no matter what they say about his personality and the sort of baggage, if you will, that he brings, they would be thrilled to have this guy come in and light up the scoreboard and provide this franchise something they have not had since Joe Namath.
Let's talk about the other team in New York, Ryan, because I know that a lot of Giants fans are feeling kind of slighted since they've done a lot of stuff already. They got, Daniel Jones got his big deal. They got Paris Campbell. They re-signed Sterling Shepard. They got Darren Waller from a trade from Vegas, who I think his wife's not very happy. We were just talking about before you came on. What do you think about all the Giants moves they've made so far?
Yeah, I mean, look, Joe Shane comes in with a reputation for what happened up in Buffalo, and I think he's lived up to it. I think he's made smart, sensible moves. You could argue that Daniel Jones, they overpaid him, but they can get out after 2 years of that deal. And frankly, they really didn't have any other options in terms of, Dable likes Jones and, he kind of, ingratiated himself with the new coaching staff this past season. And, he's not going to be a guy that, lights up the statistical numbers, if you will. But, he proved to be a solid quarterback with his run-pass combo. Is he overpaid? Absolutely. But in today's day and age with quarterbacks, that's just the going rate for salaries for quarterbacks that can win you some games. I like the Darren Waller pickup. I like the fact they brought back Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard. I think the Giants are ready here to take the next step under Brian Dable and Joe Schoen. And look, they had a lot of stuff to clean up from the previous regime with Dave Gettleman. A lot of mistakes were made, a lot of cap nightmare now as a result. So there's going to be kind of a digging out process. But I think for the Giants to make the playoffs, win a playoff game in year one under this new regime, the future is bright for Big Blue.
As you mentioned, they're still trying to dig out of the salary cap situation. Do you think they're still going to ask Leonard Williams for a pay cut?
Yeah, I mean, I think all options are on the table at this point. They just restructured someone today, and I'm blanking on who it was, but they just created like another $7 million in cap space by reworking a contract. And look, they're going to have to get creative. Dave Gettleman did bring the Giants Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. So there was some good that was done under his tutelage and under his regime, under his watch, I should say. But there's been a lot more harm than good done. So they're going to have to get creative here to kind of dig out of this salary cap hell that they're in. But this is why Joe Schoen was brought in. He's a bright young executive. And Giants fans, I can tell you unequivocally, are happy with the direction of this franchise just 1 year under this new regime.
Talking with our new good friend, Ryan Field from ABC7 New York. Second State Sports on Chicago, I should say. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Now, let's go to the hardwood for a second, Ryan. New York Knicks, I mean, they've won 7 of their last 10. Julius Randle's looked really good. Now, they've actually been done without Jalen Brunson. I know he's been struggling with injury these last few weeks. So people are saying that maybe perhaps they've had some win against Boston, and I know they had a couple of some weird losses as well. But what do you think the ceiling is for the Knicks? Could they perhaps maybe challenge the Bucks and the Sixers and the Celtics, perhaps maybe get into the Eastern Conference Finals?
I mean, listen, there's no question that Jalen Brunson was arguably the best free agent pickup this offseason, and he has really changed the whole look and feel of this Knicks team, and you don't need any more proof than what they've done in his absence. When they've struggled, they have won a couple games, but they struggled a little bit on their West Coast trip without him. He's a difference maker, and at the point guard, much like we talk about the Jets quarterback, it's been a long time since the Knicks have had a prominent point guard who can put up numbers and make the team better, and he certainly has fit that bill. Do I think they're as good as the Bucks, the Celtics, or the Sixers? No. And I think that's ultimately, barring an injury, of course, in the NBA playoffs, which, of course, we know can certainly alter things in a hurry. If a Joel Embiid gets hurt, if a Jason Tatum gets hurt, if a Giannis Antetokounmpo gets hurt, then all of a sudden maybe we're having a different conversation. But for right now, I still see the Knicks ceiling as the 4th best team in the East. There's a lot of, Monday morning quarterbacking going on here in regards to the Donovan Mitchell situation. Maybe they should have given up some of these first-round picks that they've amassed to get Donovan Mitchell, because then you throw him in there with Jalen Brunson, and, they probably would have had to trade R.J. Barrett, but you bring him in with Julius Randle. That's a nice big 3 there for the Knicks, and Mitchell being such a dynamic player. But they didn't pull the trigger, but they are in position now with all of this draft capital that Leon Rose has acquired and accumulated to go after a star player in the offseason to help complement some of these guys on the roster. But for right now, barring something unforeseen happening, I think the conference semifinals is as far as the Knicks will go in these playoffs.
And speaking of that, Ryan, you brought up Donovan Mitchell. You kind of led into my next question. If the playoffs would start today, the Knicks would play the Cavaliers. I'm assuming that you're going to give the Knicks a high chance of beating Cleveland. Of course, many Knicks fans talk about Donovan Mitchell being that difference maker. Of course, after they signed Jalen Brunson, of course, we all know that the Mitchell deal that did not get done. But what percentage of a chance would you give the Knicks in beating the Cavaliers should that first round play match happen?
Yeah, I think that's a toss-up series. I mean, Cleveland's really good. With the Garlands and the Mitchells and the Evan Mobleys and Jared Allens. I mean, they've got a nice young roster that they've put together, frankly, in a hurry. They've really turned the corner. But I think with the Knicks veterans coupled with the Madison Square Garden edge, I would give the Knicks the slight advantage in that series, even though the Cavs will probably have home court. But that'd be a heck of a series in the first round. I think we could all agree with that would be a fun one to watch. But if I had to pick right now, I'd say the Knicks. Let's say Knicks in 6 would be my prediction for that series.
That'd be interesting. How far do you think Knicks can go? Can they perhaps maybe get there? Could they perhaps, if they do get there, whoever they play in the West, do you think they could win the championship?
Well, if they made it to the finals, of course they can win the championship. But I don't, like I said, I think conference semifinals is their ceiling. I think they can win one playoff round, which I think they've only won one playoff round in the last 12 years. So it's been, some lean basketball years here as far as the Knicks are concerned in Manhattan. But listen, for the first time in a long time, you can really point to them having a bright future with some of the pieces they have in place with the Emmanuel Quickleys and the Quentin Grimes. They've got a good young talent base supplemented by the Julius Randles and the Jalen Brunsons and the RJ Barretts. So plus a bevy of draft picks. I think it's 7 first-round picks in the next 3 years. So they definitely are in position here to make some moves this offseason to really take a jump, I think, in 23-24.
We're hanging out with ABC7 sports anchor from New York City, Ryan Field, right here on Second City Sports. We're live and living color on Sports on Chicago City, Lakina hanging out here with you. We're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the baseball season, Ryan, and I'll start with the bad news, not to rub it in, but the New York Mets, they lose closer Edwin Diaz, it looks like for the year after being injured in that World Baseball Classic the other day. What do you expect from the New York Mets this year? Steve Cohen, your owner, spent a lot of cash this offseason, and now you lose your closer. Do you still expect them to be competitive along with the Braves and the Phillies in the NL East?
Yeah, I mean, a lot had to go right for the Mets to win the division with those two teams that I think have gotten better in the offseason, in the Phillies and the Braves. And now with this Diaz blow, I mean, it's hard to say that they're any better than third in the NL East, but they did sign David Robertson. They did bring back Adam Ottavino, so two guys that have a lot of closing experience. But it's hard to replace the guy who's arguably the best closer in the game, and Diaz, who was just electrically lights out last season in Queens. So the good news is this happened in March and not in August after the trade deadline. And there's a slim outside chance he could be back for the playoffs. If this, sometimes these recoveries can last 6 months, which would put about mid-September. But that's obviously the very best case scenario. So I think, GM Billy Epler, Steve Cohen, they're going to put their heads together and they're going to go out, especially by the deadline when teams decide they want to be sellers and acquire some bullpen help. You just hope by that point, by midsummer that they're not so far back in the NL East that they can't catch these guys. But their rotation is as good as anybody's. Even with the Quintana injury, he'll be back midseason, and their offense is still really good. So the Mets are still going to be making a whole ton of noise. It just sucks that this time of year, when hope springs eternal, quote unquote, you're dealing with such a gut punch here, something like this, and especially the way that it happened in the WBC.
Yeah, just crazy. Hopefully he could come back, if they do make it far into the playoffs. Let's talk about the Yankees though for a second. Of course, they got Aaron Judge back. You got Garrett Cole. That's a pretty competitive AL East. What do you think the chances are? Perhaps maybe winning the division again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Yankees are the best team in the division. I mean, obviously the Blue Jays are going to have something to say about that. I don't think the Red Sox, we're going to hear much from them. The Rays are always finding a way to hang around. But I think the Yankees win the division, but I still think at this point, I still don't see them beating Houston. And I feel like we've been having this same narrative here since 2017, that they are just not the best team in the American League. Now, does that mean they can't go out and acquire somebody here at the deadline? I mean, they basically have the same offense as last year, outside of a Volpe or Oswaldo Cabrera, Peraza, some of those kids coming in and really making some noise, but they basically have the same offense. And is their starting rotation a whole lot better? I mean, now Rodon is hurt. Harrison Bader, their center fielder, is hurt. I mean, I feel like that's all we've talked about here in New York. So thus far here in spring training is all these injuries that have affected the teams. But as it stands right now, I think the Yankees are the best team in the AL East, but still the second best team in the American League.
All right, Ryan, let's do that hockey. And it looks like maybe two at worst, but maybe all three of your teams with the Islanders, the Rangers, and New Jersey Devils are going to participate in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But I'll start with the Rangers. You have our guy now, Patrick Kane from the Chicago Blackhawks. He's pairing up with Artemi Panarin. Both they did great things while they were in the Blackhawks uniform. But looks like at least the road to the Eastern Conference Finals may go through Boston with the Bruins, of course. The Rangers, the last few years, they almost got over that hump, but couldn't quite do it. Of course, you saw what happened last year in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Tampa Bay Lightning. What percentage would you give the Rangers a chance to get out of the East, or not just get out of the East, but first, hopefully, for me as a fan, hopefully, if the Rangers can meet up with the Boston Bruins, what percentage would you give that matchup heading in the playoffs?
Look, obviously Boston's the best team in the East, but I don't need to tell you guys that the NHL playoffs are probably the most unpredictable of the big four sports. With all the puck luck and crazy bounces and, upsets galore happen all the time in the NHL playoffs. Boston is still the best team. Patrick Kane has brought a little spark here to the Rangers. We know what he brings to the table. There's still been some kind of feeling out with him and Panarin. The Rangers have played better here the last week or so. And I think they're only going to get better as the playoffs approach. But yeah, I could see them going into the Eastern Conference Finals and playing Boston and having a real chance to win that series. Especially with Shesterkin, who's such a good netminder. I think they'd have a real shot of going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. And frankly, wouldn't that be quite the story?
Yeah, absolutely. No. I'm still a little contentious with Panarin not being here in Chicago. I'm still a little upset about that. It's been about 3 years, but I'm still upset about that. Last moment or two with ABC 7 New York's Ryan Field on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Now, Ryan, of course, as you just saw, we forgave you because I figured you wanted to focus on the USC Michigan State game. Michigan got a nice win, probably the best I've seen Michigan play in the last couple of weeks. Do you think they could go far, perhaps maybe pull off the upset against Marquette, assuming they play each other?
Right, assuming Marquette wins. Look, it's hard to bet against Tom Izzo this time of year. There's years where they've kind of come from out of nowhere and made a run all the way to the Final Four. I don't think they have that type of team this year. But I do think that a Marquette team that's had some pretty impressive wins, but also some very puzzling losses this season. They did look great in the Big East tournament, as you guys saw. But I do think they're beatable. Do I think Michigan State can beat Marquette on Sunday? Absolutely, if they play. If nothing else, for the Izzo bringing the tourney resume that he does and knowing how to prepare on such a short window, that's really where he's made his mark. When he wins that first game of the weekend, his record in the second game of that weekend, he's got some sort of 750 win percentage or something like that. There's a reason why he's one of the best coaches in all of basketball. So I think just from a coaching standpoint, I would kind of give Michigan State the nod in that game. But we'll see. We'll see. As a Michigan State alum, this is always an exciting time of year, and you just never know what we're going to get.
Last question from me, Ryan. Of course, Lakina brought up part of your resume earlier. Of course, I remember you working at FS1 and Fox Sports. But before then, I remember you covering the Pistons for Fox Sports Detroit. I got NBA League Pass back in the day. And I'm sure you've been asked this moment before, but I think this was during Jason Maxiell, former NBA player's rookie season back in the 07-08 season. You were doing your halftime hit. Now, I believe this was the Pistons versus the Hawks. And did you realize this moment was coming up? Of course, Jason Maxiell, he was a rookie. Then he got hit by the basketballs by all of his teammates. Did you know that moment was coming up, or were you surprised just like the rest of us?
Well, first off, I saw Lakina clapping when you brought up the Pistons. Lakina, are you a Pistons fan?
No, but I remember that moment, though.
Oh, okay. 'Cause I was going to say, you're on in Chicago. I don't know if I'd be admitting that to too many people.
No.
If you were rooting for the Pistons.
I do like Cade Cunningham, though, so I'm hoping he can come back.
Yeah, well, I like Cade Cunningham, too. And I'd love for my Pistons to play, being a Detroit guy. I'd love for them to start playing some meaningful basketball for the first time in a long time. But going back to that moment with Rasheed, it's on YouTube if people want to check it out. Yeah, he was just chucking the balls at Jason Maxiell, which were whizzing by me as I'm doing my live report. And, you follow the NBA back in those days, and Rasheed was a character. He was so good as a player, but he had this uncanny ability to make light of any moment and really kind of bring out the best in his teammates because he had a way of, making people laugh and keeping the mood light. And that was just another kind of like a big kid, if you will. And that was one of those moments that quickly became a YouTube sensation. I did not know it was coming, but the first ball hit me right in the calf. So I knew that we were in for a little bit of a distracting on-camera hit. But look, these are all the perils of the job that come when you're on the sidelines, because you never know what's going to happen. You got balls flying at you, players flying at you. Who the hell knows what's going to happen? But that was certainly an all-timer. That was a classic.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, to your Lions are playing very well. Of course, they kept the Packers from going to the playoffs, and
yeah.
Well,
Now, see, that's something we can all agree on, isn't that?
Right, exactly. And last question from me: what do you think about your Lions? Could you think, the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, a lot of those guys are gone. The Bears are still rebuilding. The Vikings, we know what they're going to do. So, do you like your Lions' chances, or at least compete in the division? Again?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they won 8 of their last 10, and I would argue by the end of the season, and this might not be a popular opinion, but I would argue they were the 4th best team in the NFC by the time the season was over with. They were playing as well as anyone, and talking to a couple of my 49er buddies, they wanted no part of the Lions in the playoffs because of the way that they were playing. And that would have been the matchup had they gotten in. But I think, look, now that Aaron Rodgers, I mean, think about this. If you guys are Bears fans and I'm a Lions fan, I mean, we've had to deal with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers since 1991. Like, what the hell is going on? I mean, or 92, I think is what it was. But, I mean, it's a long time of just having 2 of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in that division and, frankly, just running things for the better part of 30 years. So I think we can all celebrate the fact that Rodgers is out of the division, and I don't care what people say about Jordan Love. He is not going to be as good as Aaron Rodgers. So, it's one of those things where does this open the door for the Lions? Absolutely. I think the Bears have had a really nice offseason, and they still have a bunch of cap space with money to spend. So, I think the NFC North is going to be as wide open as it's been in a long time next year, and I fully expect the Lions to be there when it's all said and done.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today, Ryan. This has been so much fun. We got to have you on as we get closer to football season, especially.
Yes.
Where people can find you on your social media, and then for those of you folks who live out there in New York City, where people can find you on ABC7.
Appreciate it, guys. Lakina, Sydney, pleasure being on with you today.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right, keep up the great work.
Yeah. All right. So that was ABC7's Ryan Field on Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago.
All right, where can people follow him on social media? Lakina, I know you're getting ready to.
Yeah, I would say Ryan Field ABC, and I believe Ryan Field 7 on Instagram. Of course, he had we really get a chance to ask, but he went to Europe recently, so we get a chance to. We didn't have time, but we got to talk to him about that. But that was a lot of fun having him on. With
us. We'll definitely have to have him back on because it's this is a busy time of year in sports with college basketball going on. Of course, baseball season starting. Of course, it looks like at worst 2 of the 3 area NHL teams will get into the playoffs. So it's an exciting time, a busy time for New York sports fans. So we'll definitely have him back. And it's going to be a whole lot of drama between those 2 baseball teams with the Mets and Yankees. So we'll definitely have him back for that.
Yeah, you can check him out on 4, 6, and 10, I think, on in New York, Eastern time in New York. Yeah. So every weeknight. So he's a lead anchor for them. So
go to that station's website, you can see his reports as well. So
it's all right there. Yeah, his reports, their own videos is all right there for you. So I was the Second City Sports on SportsZone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Okay, updates here. Of course, we talked about Michigan State beat USC. Xavier and Kennesaw State are now tied at 67 in the final seconds. So
Kennesaw State was up 8 points late, but Xavier fought their way back and tied it. Like you say, it's 18.3 seconds left, and we are tied at 67. Chris Youngblood for Kennesaw State fouled out. He had 14 points.
Yeah, he's a leading scorer too. So that might be a big blow for them as well. So that's going to be a big blow for them. We'll see what happens in 18.3, especially if they go to overtime. Baylor is up 5 against UCSB, and back and forth game between VCU and St. Mary's. St. Mary's is up as they're wrapping up the first half, 28-29. So, and UVM and Marquette, they're about to tip off in about 2 minutes. So, Yeah, so a lot of great a lot of great basketball action going on right now. So we get a chance to go to breaks it, but let's talk about the NBA real quick. The Bulls.
De'Aaron Fox hit the dagger with
Darn
with
De'Aaron
0.7 seconds left at the United Center on Wednesday, as the Sacramento Kings come from behind to beat the Chicago Bulls 117-114. The Bulls are 6 games under 500 at 31-37, while Sacramento improved their record to 41-27. As I said, almost all season, Lakina. Mike Brown, the head coach of the Sacramento Kings, he's your head coach of the year. As far as the Bulls' contributions were concerned, 33 points, a game high from DeMar DeRozan. Zach LaVine had 25. He struggled shooting, though, only 7 for 22 from the field overall. But Patrick Williams had 13 points for 4 rebounds coming off the bench. Kobe White contributed with 12 points coming off the bench. But Lakina, Ayo Dosunmu in 28 minutes struggled offensively. Vucevic had another double-double, 20 points, 14 rebounds. But as we said all year, we said this at various points around this time a year ago, they struggled to make that key defensive play down the stretch, and it was another bad example on Wednesday.
Yeah, that was just a shot. He that by Fox. I mean, he was a hot hand, and there was nothing really more I could do with that with that shot that he made. So that was look, they were up 16. They came back, and look, you can feel better knowing that look, the Kings are the number 2 seed in the West right now as we're recording this. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep it up. Now, this is actually going to be the latest that they've had, and being in the top 2. I mean, this is sort of they're over 500 for the first time this late in the season is 04-05. Of course, Domantas Sabonis, who's been the Bulls killer the last few years.
Going back to his Pacer days, yes.
Yeah, he helped contribute to that comeback by the Kings. So at least right now they're making a big show for it. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can keep it up. But yeah, that's going to be very interesting. So let's get right to some of the games that what struck you this week in the NBA real quick.
Philadelphia bounced back with a big win at Cleveland on Wednesday, 118-109. As I said before, Joel Embiid is my top candidate for MVP right now. He's been playing very well and staying healthy throughout the majority of the season. Anthony Davis sat a game for load management BS. As the Lakers lose at Houston by 4 points, 114-110. The Lakers still hanging around that play-in tournament spot, as Portland's been struggling too. And speaking of another Western Conference team trying to participate in that play-in tournament, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they lose a heartbreaker on Wednesday at home against Boston, 104-102. You would think with the Bulls hosting the Minnesota Timberwolves tonight at the UC, the Bulls could take advantage of this, right? You would think, because on Minnesota, they're being carried by Anthony Edwards, the first-time All-Star all year, especially due to the injuries to Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing with the Bulls tonight. As sorry, I'm getting a little distracted. The Kansas had a couple of chances. Looks like they was going to hang on. They only got 1.6 seconds left. So in that game, but yeah, going back to the Bulls, you hope they can take advantage of that. I mean, look, they still got with everyone else losing, they still got a shot to win that. To get into that last spot in the play-in. So I know people want them to tank at this point. That's not going to happen. So I think Bulls are just fans just kind of like relaxing and enjoy the weird ride that is coming up. Now, Miami, real quick, on Wednesday got a nice win, a much-needed win against Memphis, 138-119. Bam had 26 points for the Heat, so they're staying kind of like right in there. And I know they played them on Sunday, so I'm
And speaking real quick, just to mention, we don't have to go into a discussion with this, but John Morant, the star point guard for Memphis Grizzlies, has been suspended 8 games. The 6 games that he missed already counts towards that 8-game suspension, so he's going to be gone at least the next couple of games. And he gave an interview to ESPN's Jalen Rose the other night. For those of you who missed it, you can catch it on YouTube. But that's the latest with John Morant.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if he can come back. And I guess they put a hammer down that they're not letting their guys stay there not too long. Only like one night. Like, look, these guys, these are grown men. This is not Coach Carter. They're not high school kids or even college. These are grown men. You can't do that. So yeah, good luck signing free agents, Grizzlies. But But anyway, let's go into this week's games.
Yeah, one more game, Lakina, from Wednesday before we move on. The Clippers finally got a big win despite Steph Curry scoring 50 points for the Warriors. The Clippers beat the Warriors 134 to 126 on Wednesday. Kawhi Leonard, 30 points. As long as him and Paul George stay hot, they can make their move.
Well, remember too, the Warriors, they were on the road, so we know the road's been an issue for the Warriors this year. So I'm not that surprised that the Clippers were able to, but they were able to hang on. And look, despite Steph having his best showing since coming back with 50 points, so that's that whole thing is gonna be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, Sacramento got the big win against the Nets last night as well. Toronto trying to make things interesting there, and that bottom, that play in. So we'll just see what happens there. Going into tonight's matchup Friday this weekend. Take a little break from the March Madness. Philly is playing Charlotte at 6:00. The first game, the NBA TV doubleheader. You got, of course, got the women's tournament going on ESPN. So that's why they're on NBA TV. Golden State and Atlanta. That should be a fun one. Atlanta has struggled a little bit since Quinn Snyder took over. So that's gonna be interesting to see what happens there. Washington, Cleveland. Go Cavs if you're a Bulls fan, I'm sure. Talk about Minnesota, Chicago at 7:00 too.
All right, finishing out tonight's schedule, we'll have New Orleans at Houston at 7:00. The Grizzlies without John Morant there at San Antonio at 7:00. And wrapping up tonight's schedule, we have Boston at Portland at 9:00. The Blazers have been struggling real bad these last couple of weeks. And of course, the second half of the NBA TV doubleheader tonight, we'll have the Dallas Mavericks visiting the Los Angeles Lakers. That's at 9:30.
Yeah, too bad LeBron's not playing, but
I know. They said he hasn't been improving, so we'll see what happens. The Lakers are 2 games below 500.
Interesting. Saturday, tomorrow's games, you got Denver and New York at high noon. Then you've got Orlando and the Clippers at 2:00. I think the Kings are playing later that day. That's why, again, with the early.
Yeah, and I think with the Knicks, I believe the New York Rangers are playing at night too. So
that's why it hits the early matchups. There in the NBA. Philadelphia and Indiana. If you're a Bulls fan, you're cheering for Philly. Minnesota and Toronto go their first. The second back to back. Of course, at 6:00. Of course, they play the Bulls tonight, and then they play Toronto tomorrow.
Yep, the Timberwolves and the Raptors play tomorrow at 6:00. Finishing out the Saturday night schedule, we'll have the Sacramento visit Washington at 7:00. Golden State at Memphis Grizzlies again without John Morant. That's at 7:00. That's the NBA TV Saturday night game of the day. And wrapping up tomorrow night's schedule, we'll have Boston at Utah at 8 p.m.
Sunday, you got Denver and Brooklyn at 2:30. Then you got the Suns as they can start their East Coast trip. They face OKC. Not on the road trip, not East Coast road trip, obviously. Atlanta and San Antonio at 3. They got Miami. They're going over on a back-to-back. They face Detroit at 6:00.
And wrapping up the Sunday night schedule, we'll have New Orleans at Houston at 6:00. We have Toronto at Milwaukee at 7:00. That's a Sunday night TV game for NBA TV. Wrapping up the Sunday night schedule, we'll have the Clippers at the Blazers at 8:00. And at 8:30, we'll have Orlando at Los Angeles as Orlando will wrap up their back-to-back stay in Los Angeles. This time they'll face Anthony Davis, hopefully in the Los Angeles Lakers. That's at 8:30.
And that is scheduled for your schedule for this weekend in NBA. As you listen to Second City Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you as we wrap things up. Some sports media news to talk about. Chicago's very own, of course, he's from here. Of course, you guys are seeing him right now as we speak. Doing his thing on CBS with their the college hoops coverage. Greg Gumma has signed a new TV deal with CBS. Now he will still be doing the college hoops and stuff, but he will no longer be doing the NFL this coming season. So 76 years old. I didn't know this man was 76. Like we were talking about right before we started recording, Sid. I mean, I had no clue. And remember, Brian, his brother Brian's is like over a year older, so he's about 78, and he doesn't look it either. So like, I don't know what they're selling that family, but they should sell whatever it is they're doing. But,
of course, Greg Gumma has been doing great with his work throughout all these years. Of course, for those of you living in New York City, he did the Knicks games for a while, substitute for Marv Albert on MSG for a while. He was actually one of the first DJs on WFAN in New York when they started in 1987. Most people didn't know that. I didn't know that either until I saw that 30 from their 30 Mike and the Mad Dog from a couple years ago. So He's been around for a long time. Of course, he did NBC for a minute after the NFL lost his contract to CBS back in the day. He did the NFL and the NBA on NBC for a few years in the 90s before CBS got the NFL back, which they still do have now. Of course, Grant Gumbel went back there. And of course, he was the first black play-by-play man to call the Super Bowl. He did the Giants-Ravens Super Bowl in 2000, and he did the Carolina-New England Super Bowl following the 2003 season. So this man has been in front of our television screens for a long time, been part of some historical events. He did a great job calling the NFL. He'll still do a great job of doing college basketball.
He'll be 70. Yeah, he'll be 77, and I believe by the time the season starts. So hopefully, this means that our buddy Spiro Dees will go up. Will go up. Up the pike. He'll have a full NFL schedule. You got to think that because you remember Adam Marcelletta, who was paired with the last few years in the NFL side. He'll be without it. He's going to need a new partner too. So does everybody go up? Do they do more reshuffling? Except of course with Janice and Tony Romo. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and also too with college basketball, we're watching March Madness right now. This is Jim Nance's last run as the lead voice of college basketball. He'll still call NFL games, but this is his last run as the lead voice of college basketball because I believe our Iron Eagle is going to take his spot starting next season.
Yep. So. Not really a change of the guard, but sort of like guys. Of course, like you said, Nance's still gonna be doing some NFL. He's gonna do golf as well. So now he's gonna be lighting his schedule up a little bit. And I'm sure he's gonna be cheering for his Houston Cougars to get to somehow make it to a Final Four in Houston. But we'll see. But it's gonna be very interesting though, like you said, Sid. But And real quick, before we disperse, Diamond Sports, of course, they declared bankruptcy, and they still have not paid the Arizona Diamondbacks.
It looks like they ain't gonna pay a few more teams either. As I skimmed through that article on the net earlier this morning, should the worst, even of course, Diamond Sports, who owns Bally Sports, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy the other day. If this continues to get worse, as we're less than 2 weeks away from the start of the regular season, will Major League Baseball Productions step in to rescue those teams like Arizona, San Diego, Cincinnati, and Cleveland? They'll get their situation straightened out in less than 2 weeks. Major League Baseball, they said they were going to step in and put those games on MLB TV, and those fans and those markets can watch those games for free.
Yeah, I hope so, because I mean they shouldn't have to put the brunt of what, and like we've been talking about it. I mean, look, the RSNs, the thing with the RSNs, that's becoming like a, they're no longer needed. So of course,
right, because now go ahead.
Right, because you got streaming now, you got all these other, you got YouTube and such. So unfortunately these are becoming obsolete now. Thankfully, here in Chicago, we don't have to worry about that just yet, even though they're having their own issues, but. I'm interested to see how this goes with Diamond Sports. I mean, I think they bit off more than they could chew, and now they're kind of stuck with some of these, not being able to pay some of these teams.
Yeah, of course, Bally Sports broadcasts some NBA games and some, of course, locally, not here in NHL. So those seasons are getting ready to wrap up in about 3 weeks with the playoffs right. So they won't have too much problem with that, but they won't have any issues with that. But baseball, we know it's treated like a regional sport, just like the NHL during the regular season. But a whole lot of people listen to baseball games and watch baseball games, whether you're into it or not, as background noises. So this is very important, especially in those markets like San Diego, Cleveland. Yes. They expect their teams to contend this year. If you can't find a comparable situation for your fans to watch those games, that's gonna be trouble for you.
Yeah, it's very off with that now. From what I've read, the World Baseball Classic race have been okay. They're setting records in Japan. I think they're getting like Super Bowl kind of type records in Japan. But of course, we talked about it with Ryan earlier. The Edwin Diaz injury, that was just like terrible. And if you saw how it all kind of transpired. I mean, he was just celebrating. He was just celebrating a big win for Puerto Rico, and look what happened. It's just like it's a little nutty, but
I know they had aired some of the games on MLB Network released the replays that I caught, but they're on Fox Sports too. They're not on the big Fox, and I think that's what's hurt the viewership here in the United States.
Yeah, I think that's 'cause I don't think there's a lot of interest in the World Baseball Classic unless you're like just a
Not
big
here,
sports
not in the
fan.
United States. No.
Yeah, and it's just like, I heard, some people said that, maybe they should maybe basketball should do what baseball's doing. Baseball, they got a lot of their pros and such. But I mean, look, look, if these guys want to play for the country, it's fine. I know Tim Anderson's been kicking butt. I know Lance has been kicking butt for the White Sox too. But I'm sure if you're a White Sox fan, Sid, I know I'll ask you, would you rather not?
Selfishly, no, because your allegiance is to the White Sox, but at the same time, you can't stop them for playing for their home countries if they want to. Well, we were talking about this with the NHL a couple of years ago, and where they didn't send their players to play in the winter. They were having issues if they wanted to send their players over to play in these last Winter Olympic Games, because those players, obviously, that counts for something. You get a gold medal, and I always tell people all the time that don't follow hockey into the playoffs. The equal intensity to the Stanley Cup playoffs is Olympic hockey. There's nothing like it. And you really see those players go out for a gold medal. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel like I kind of feel like and because I heard you sent me that there were some people that said that maybe it's going to basketball for a second. They should get rid of the pros and such. Why would you do that? Especially since now they've they're sort of like right at that level now. The other countries are. So you want to go back to having guys from college. You want a Drew Timme or Jalen
no,
playing there. You don't want that. Come on now. You don't want a Tim Anderson or Aaron Judge. I don't even think he's playing. I'm just saying it for example purposes, but I don't want that either. So yeah, I think it's silly for people to say, oh well, the pro shouldn't play. Okay, make it an even play field then. Have all amateurs or have all pros. So I think people need to kind of chill on that. But
yeah, this is a business decision as well. We know superstars sell. Period.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of them want to play for their country, so it's fine. With that said, you can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan_McGee on IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, SIDKID80, SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports on Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports on Chicago on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcasts. And we're available on all podcast platforms where you get your podcasts. And make sure you give War Media a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes, we'd like to thank Mr. Ryan Field, the sports TV anchor and host from ABC 7 in New York City. As Lakina said, follow him on social media. And make sure you go to abc7newyork.com and catch all of his sports reports. He's on daily in the New York City tri-state area. We're definitely going to have him back at some point.
Absolutely. And also, don't forget, Sports on Chicago is now on Roku TV. Go to your app store, whatever device you're on, whether it's your laptop, your smartphone or your television. Just type in on your Roku TV app. Type in Sports on Chicago is right there. You can check out our show, Sean and Maya. What's up, cuz? The Smoke Fellas. They're gonna have a great show coming up this tomorrow. So anywhere, wherever you want. So it's all right there for you.
Yep. And I don't know about you, Lakeem, but I'm going back and turning on this TV and this laptop to enjoy the rest of the tournament for this weekend. Because as I said before to people, this is one of the best times of year to be a sports fan. Like I said, baseball is around the corner. In the first 2 days, the first weekend of March Madness, when you have games going on all day, you cannot beat it.
And you can actually watch them too, because you remember way back when you had to get stuck with, especially here, you had to get stuck with whatever a Big Ten game. And a lot of the times those games were boring. So
yes, yes,
with it,
it was very regionalized back then.
Yeah, thank God for technology. Thank God for cable and streaming. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So enjoy all the games, and such. Everybody, all the like I said, all the the NBA, the college hoops, of course, on the women's side too. They're starting right now as we speak too. Got soccer going on, you got golf going on. So yeah, a lot. This is a cornucopia of stuff for all you sports fans out there. So enjoy it, everybody. If you're gonna go out and St. Patrick's Day tonight, make sure, or this weekend, make sure you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Don't do any other foolishness and such. So for Sid, I'm Lakita. This has been Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Love, peace, and hair grease. Holla!